All righty. So tonight's lesson is we are coming from the book Praying the Names of God. It is a 52-week lesson or devotional, and we are going to go in chronological order as of now. And the first week is God Mighty Creator. And so in doing the study, I told you guys I started studying for this like maybe 2 weeks ago. And then last week, God just pushed me to the side and told me to do something else because of how I was feeling. And it made a lot more sense this week when I was going back and looking at some of my notes and recapping, because last week we talked about just God blessing us and feeling the blessings of God, but also feeling overwhelmed in all the things that were happening, and how not to be ungrateful for what God has done, but we are trying to carry God-sized blessings with human power and with human authority and with human dominion. And that just ain't happening. And so we have to reintroduce God back into all that we do so that he can get the glory, one, out of all that's happening, all the blessings, but then also that we realize that the blessing didn't come from us. And so it's not our responsibility to carry it. And so putting God back at the forefront of all things, which definitely ties back into this week's lesson of God Mighty Creator. And so some of the scriptures that are in here is Genesis 1, and that's going to be verses 1 through 10, and then also 31. And then I'm also going to highlight Psalm 63, verses 1 through 4. I will read those really quickly, and then we will push through. Let's see. So Genesis 1, 1 through 10 says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and void. Darkness was all over the surface of the deep, and the spirit of God was moving over the surface of water. God said, let there be light, and there was light. God saw the light, and it was good. And God separated the light from darkness. God called the light day, and darkness he called night. So evening and morning were the first day. Then God said, let there be an expanse in the midst of waters, and let's separate the waters from the waters. So God made an expanse and separated the waters in which under the expanse from the waters, which were above the expanse. And it was so. God called the expanse heaven. And so the evening and the morning were the second day. Then God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together in one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters he called seas. Then God saw it and said it was good. And I'm reading from the MEV. And if you go on, it continues to go through the creations of all 7 days. Then we're going to jump down to verse 31. It said, God saw everything that he made, and behold, it was very good. So the evening and the morning were the sixth day. And then we know we go on to Genesis 2, and it says, and on the seventh day, God rested. So all of Genesis 1 is going through the days of creation. So then we're going to jump down to Psalm 63. And I'm going to read verses 1 through 4. And this is David writing. It says, "O God, you are my God. Early will I seek you. My soul thirsts for you, and my flesh longs for you, in a dry and weary land where there is no water. So I have looked upon you in the sanctuary, beholding your power and your glory, because your loving kindness is better than life. My lips shall praise you. Thus I will bless you while I live. I will lift up my hands in your name." And that's Psalm 63, verses 1 through 4. So, hold on, my notes just went away. So, when we talk about God as the creator, I want us to, I'm going to touch on a subject that's very touchy. And it's when people are like, oh, the universe is working things out for me. The universe is bringing things together. The universe is on my side. The universe is on my favor. The universe exists. We are not going to not act as if it doesn't. However, the universe was created. Who created the universe? God created the universe. So if I am going to go to something or give something credit for what's happening, when you give credit to the universe, you're removing the credit from God, which is exactly what the enemy wants to happen. So if I'm going to go to something to give me what I want, or I'm going to go to something to create or fill a need, not create a need, to fill a need, I'm going to go to the creator. I'm not going to go to the universe because the universe was created. I'm going to go to the thing, person, being that created the universe, which is God. So every time I hear people talk about it, it irks my nerves because I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to go to something that God created us in the same manner that he created the universe. So we have to acknowledge that first. Like God is created. Nothing created God. He is the creator of all things. And because he is the creator of all things, we have to acknowledge him as such. He doesn't and another thing is he doesn't react to chaos. So we see this is God creates order. So when he's going through each day, there is order into how he creates, and there's a reason as to why he creates things in that order. And the more we can acknowledge that God operates that way, we can see how he operates in our life. We can see how things are ordered, things are structured. And when we talk about God ordering our steps, this is a part of it. Like God order, that can be a part of someone's prayer. God, order my steps in the way that you ordered the days, in the way that you ordered creation, in the way that you ordered the heavens and the earth to separate, the day and the night to separate. Order my steps in that way so that I know that I can be in alignment with you. Um, and when we do this, this can shift our faith away from what God can do to what God has already done. Because we look at like and I said this before, um, every time we have a situation come up or every time things happen in our lives is as if we forget what God has done before. And if God has never failed and or left you before, why is he going to start doing it now? Why is this going to be the situation that God doesn't show up for? Why is this going to be the thing that God doesn't provide for? Why is this going to be the time that God just doesn't be, why is he not going to be God in this? And that's what the enemy wants to happen. He wants you to lose your faith. He wants you to not believe that God is not going to create or do or be in whatever the situation is, and we can't allow that to happen. So remember that we should always shift it from not like, God, what are you going to do? God, this is what you've done, so I know you're going to do it. My faith is that it has to happen. It has to work out this way. And however it works out is going to be for the good. And that's what scripture says. All things work together for the good of those who are called. So make sure that you're called. Um, okay, another part. I said this. God's creation is not random, it's all intentional. So we are not random creatures. You are not a random person. You are not randomly created. You are not just like a bot. Like, no, when God created you, when God created me, he was very intentional about that creation. He was very intentional about the person, the place, the purpose that we have. Everything that God creates has a purpose. And so that means you and we have a purpose, and God is intentional about that. That's why when we talk about seeking and finding your purpose, what is it that you're called to do? Why is that so important? Is because that's God's intention behind you. And that's what makes you unique. That's what makes you important. That's what makes you different than your brother, your sister, your mother, your father, your friend. That's what makes you different, is the purpose and the intention that God placed in you. He was not random when he created you. He did not just say, oh, okay, here's another human being. There are 7 billion people on this earth, and each and every one has a purpose, but not all of them acknowledge it or know it. And at the same time, this is off the subject, but this is the one thing that all humans have in common. It doesn't matter how much money you have, don't have, health, wellness, whatever. We all have the same 24 hours. God did not give me 25, although sometimes I wish he did, and he did not give you 22. We all are given the same amount of time every single day to live in our purpose. Now, what you do with that time, how you spend that time, is either going towards what God has created you to do or against it. So if you spend 6 of your 24 hours scrolling on Instagram, is that going towards your purpose or away from it? Now, if you're a content creator, that's one thing. But if you just on there randomly looking at other people in their business, if you are a parent, the amount of time that you spend in your purpose as a parent opposed to not. Like these are things that we have to be intentional about realizing God created me for this. And so am I using my time productively to go towards what God has created me to do or away from it? Um, and we see in Genesis 1 that God created all of these things from nothing. So it doesn't matter what point you are in your life or what you may have going on. If you feel like there's no movement, God can create out of it. He doesn't need anything to create. So that means if we're going to bring things to life, if we're going to continue to walk and foster in that purpose, we don't need anything but God, because if we have nothing, God has everything. And he can create something from that nothing. And when God speaks, when God says, let there be, there is. So that's why some of us I know were a part of Dr. Brianna's 40-day Let There Be challenge. And over the years, that challenge has grown, and the significance and the teaching behind it has grown, because we have to realize that there is really power in our words, just like there was power when God said, let there be. So when he said, let there be, and he said, let us give them, talking about us humans, dominion over the earth, he gave us dominion over what happens here. So when we say, let there be, and we put the full backing of God behind it, there's no stopping it, because we have said what God has said to create. Another point, when God creates, what he has created is good. That means you are good. That means I am good. That means we are good. That means there is no, even if you have bad tendencies, there's good in you because God created you. And he said, it's good. The only thing he said was not good was for man to be alone. And that is when he created Eve. So he was equally intentionally, what's the word I'm looking for? He was intentional about us as he was about creating all other things. Then we go down to Psalm 63, 1-4, and this is David talking. So when you guys do your own study, it's important. I always say to look at who wrote it, because that has a backing on why things are said a certain way. Here comes a Terminator. Who wrote it? David wrote it. The time that David wrote it. So was like, what was he going through? We know David had a hi. Thank you. Can you close the door, please? Thank you. Go take it back. Thank you. Thank you. Daddy's gonna take you in there to play with your block, okay? Yeah, go play with your block in there. Thank you. Um, we have to look at where David is in his life when he wrote this, because we know David was in the field. He was a shepherd. He was not recognized by his family when when they were coming. Jesse did not acknowledge that David was in the field when they were looking for the next king. When Samuel said the next king is in your house, he went through all of his sons, and finally Jesse's like, it ain't none. I mean, he told Jesse it's none of these. It got to be somebody else. And he was like, oh yeah, David is in the field. And he goes out to get him. So he goes through that. Then he goes through killing Goliath. He goes through being a songstress and playing for Saul when Saul couldn't sleep. And he goes through running from Saul because Saul is now afraid of him, because he's been said that he's going to be the next king. He goes on the run, and Saul dies, and he has all these different things happen. But David still, even in all his transgressions, he still was seen as like a man of God's heart. All that he had been through, all that he had gone through. And when he writes this, he's longing. He says, I'm longing for you, God, not because he lacks comfort, but because he understands that God is where the life comes from. And he realizes that God is the creator. And so, one thing, if we cannot learn anything else from David in this particular psalm, is that worship becomes a response and not a routine. So sometimes people, especially like when you go to church service, the worship part of the service is a routine part of the service, but worship should honestly be a full part of our life. Like it should not be routine for us. It should be our response to all things. When things are going good, we should worship. When things are not going good, we should worship. When we're uncertain, we should worship. When we are certain, we should worship. Worship should be a part of our daily lives, our daily activity. It should not be like, I'm just going to worship at this particular time. It should be our response because God is worthy to be worshiped as the creator. And then when we acknowledge God as the creator, it shapes how we live and how we lead and how we look at other things. Because, and we've talked about this before, the difference between joy and happiness is people are like, oh, I just want to be happy. I just want to be happy. God don't care about you being happy. The Bible does not say be happy. It says have joy, which is a whole nother lesson, a whole nother time, a whole nother subject. But I want us to focus on that part. Don't focus on happiness, focus on joy. And you can have joy when you realize God is your creator. So I'm going to leave it there. We're going to stop this.